What a breath of fresh air. The new Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, in Parliament today actually put a little bit of a smile on my face. I never thought I'd say that. While the news was still bad, Freedom Day will not be granted to us on July the 5th, Javid's tone was in total contrast to Matt Hancock. Gone were the doomsday warnings and scare tactics from the hypocrite-in-chief Hancock. Gone too was the lecturing tone used to hector us with constant demands on our lives and personal behaviours, which we now know Hancock was not even bothering to follow himself. Instead, Javid wanted to assure the population that he is working towards taking us back to normal life as soon as humanly possible. I believed him too. Have a look at what the new Health Secretary had to say in his first major statement to Parliament.
People and businesses need certainty, so we want every step to be irreversible. And make no mistake, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the restrictions on our freedoms, they must come to an end. We owe it to the British people, who have sacrificed so much to restore their freedoms as quickly as we possibly can, and not to wait a moment longer than we need to. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with the numbers heading in the right direction, all while we protect more and more people each day, July the 19th remains our target date. The Prime Minister has called it our terminus date. For me, 19th July is not only the end of the line, but the start of an exciting new journey for our country. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, at this crucial moment in our fight back against this pandemic, we must keep our resolve and keep on our roadmap to freedom, so that together we can beat this pandemic and we can build back better. It is a task that I am deeply honoured to lead, and one I know will succeed.
Now, critically, Sajid Javid also explicitly ruled out a zero COVID strategy, stressing we cannot eliminate it. Instead, we have to learn to live with it. Thank God Hancock decided to break his own COVID laws by tonguing his publicly funded hired help, because he may just have granted us a health secretary who is up to the challenge of recovering from this pandemic. During his time on the backbenches, Javid had pointed out concerns about the economic and social costs of lockdown, becoming one of the first senior Tories to break rank last May. And as a well-placed source told the Daily Telegraph today, he's a real lockdown sceptic. He's convinced that in a few years' time, with the economic costs so high, everyone will be thinking, why the hell did we do that? The tilt in the cabinet has just shifted quite considerably. Now, I'm very passionate about this. Lockdown scepticism doesn't mean opposing all forms of restrictions by any means. But what it does suggest to me is that Sajid Javid will be prepared to adequately consider the costs and benefits of regulations in the future. That's all I've been asking for these past few months. For the past year, Australia has gladly taken the international plaudits for its coronavirus strategy, which has attempted to achieve the impossible: zero COVID. The country has brutally tried to contain the virus by banning all international travel, testing international law by blocking the re-entry of citizens from hotspots like India, and turning state against state with a draconian border policy. But as I have been saying, for all that time, a zero COVID strategy is a dangerous fantasy. Parts of Australia, like its second biggest city, Melbourne, have been forced into a constant cycle of lockdowns due to even a solitary case, just one. Now there's a major outbreak in Sydney of the Indian variant, which has forced a 14-day lockdown in New South Wales and is threatening the entire country. Because of the zero COVID policy, there is no general immunity in the community. And the country's vaccine rollout has been painfully slow, with vaccine hesitancy high in a land that felt completely protected from the virus. Of course, Australia wasn't protected. The virus still got in. It always does. And now, just as the rest of the Western world is thinking about a return to normal life, thanks to our vaccine success story, Australia is facing a very uncertain future. Moving on, I think the Home Secretary Priti Patel is right to introduce laws that will allow the government to process asylum seekers offshore. The Nationality and Borders Bill should allow the UK to share a centre with Denmark, possibly in the African nation of Rwanda. Something has to be done. Over 315 migrants crossed the channel in small boats over the weekend. 315. That means the total this year is now over 5,600. And finally, in the digest tonight, new countdown host Dan Robinson has been a breath of fresh air these past few weeks on why we all need to reject the ridiculous cancel culture sweeping through the entertainment industry. So when I heard today that the BBC was relaunching her famous game show, The Weakest Link, in prime time, I was delighted. Imagine the snowflakes having to deal with Anne's acerbic put-downs in 2021. That would be a sight to behold. I mean, as Anne herself said this past week, I wouldn't get away with a lot of it now. We're very woke these days. And sure enough, my hopes were quickly dashed. The gutless bosses at the Beeb are bringing back The Weakest Link, but without Anne Robinson. Instead, the nice guy comedian Ramesh Ranganathan will be taking up the hosting duties, which makes the whole thing an entire letdown from the get-go. That's my view of the world tonight.